Hello there. Welcome in. Glad to have you, whether you're listening on Extra Sports 1300, 740 KVOR, or you're streaming the show on either one of those stations' apps. And I highly recommend that you do that because they are both free to download. They are both free to use. And you can listen to this or any of the shows that you enjoy on those two stations through that app. Of course, there's another way to consume the show on a daily basis, which is sweeping the nation, and that is to watch the show anywhere you scroll at Extra Sports 1300 at 740 KVOR, or you could watch through my social media platforms at Gingerly Tweets on X and at Gingewatch on Instagram. Let us, first, I want to tell you, we'll be a veritable cornucopia of sports topics. I can't go without telling you that. And I can't go without telling you how much I would appreciate and enjoy your interaction. You could call or text in the show at 719-247-1313. Or if you are watching the show, you could just simply drop a comment on the live stream. Now then, let us proceed. Now, we have to be fair here. If the Denver Nuggets are the only team this upcoming season that is in the second apron, we cannot call the Cronkies cheap. Okay? We at least owe them that, and it would be much in line with the nuanced conversation when it comes to the how frugal Stan Kroenke is. The old saying is it's not that they're cheap with everything. The product on the court or the field, they're willing to invest in. But when it comes to the front office, when it comes to the facilities, when it comes to the head coach, that's where they look to make up some of that money. Well, this would be true to form if the Cronkies allow the Denver Nuggets to be the only team in the NBA that is into that second apron. And that is their reality right now after they matched the Thunder's 2-year, $12 million offer to Spencer Jones late Sunday night. They are in the very place that just a year ago, if you remember, Josh Kroenke made it out to be a doomsday scenario potentially if this organization were to be in the second apron, and he invoked the name of Nikola Jokic and kind of floated the idea that they would be an injury away from having to trade him. They're there now. They're here. You don't have to wait for Avengers Doomsday in December. This is Nuggets Doomsday. This is what Josh Kroenke foretold. They cannot go into the second apron because it would be disastrous, and yet that's where they sit right now because of Spencer Jones. He's going to be the guy that puts the Nuggets into the second apron. I don't believe it. I don't believe that the Nuggets are just, with Peyton Watson still yet to sign, and at this point, if they sign him for $1, which I don't think is allowed, but if they signed him for $1, they would still be in the second apron. So I can't believe that the Nuggets would actually, that was the one place that I think even Nuggets fans who are screaming at the top of their lungs for the Nuggets to do something this offseason were saying go into the second apron. Maybe they were. But this was always not where any team wants to be. Look around the league. Nobody else is in it. Everybody else is scared to death of it, and the Nuggets are going to forge ahead. And they're willing to go into this second apron to sign Spencer Jones, of all people? No disrespect, but, I mean, it's not Jamal Murray. It's not Aaron Gordon. I can't imagine that the Nuggets are fine just being in the second apron. So I'm still at the place where I believe, and this is what I said at the outset of the offseason, Peyton Watson, Cam Johnson, Aaron Gordon, pick at least one of the three, they're not going to be on the team. Now, the Nuggets do technically have until the trade deadline to get under the second apron, so maybe it's not – maybe there's a chance that all three of them are on the roster to begin the year. But I just can't foresee all three of them being on the roster by the end of the year. Not with everything we've been led to believe about how terrible it is to be in the second apron. So if I'm playing Nuggets general manager, okay, and clearly they like Spencer Jones enough to set off the alarm bells that went off last night when the Denver Nuggets crossed over the threshold into the second apron. Clearly, they like Spencer Jones to a certain degree. So, if they like Spencer Jones and they're also unwilling to stay in the second apron, well, that leaves one obvious move to me, which is one that they're actually left with after going in the second apron. Call up a team like the Clippers or the Nets. They already have the Nets number. We know this. Call them up and say, give us picks and you get Peyton Watson. I mean, doesn't that seem like the most obvious thing for the Denver Nuggets to do? And the problem is only LA and Brooklyn right now can just take on Peyton Watson's contract. Because if you don't, then you're even further into the second apron, and now you're having to shed even more salary. Right now, you only need to shed a little bit of salary. A little bit of salary gets you out of the second apron. You sign Peyton Watson to even, let's say, 20, which it doesn't seem like he's going to be signed for 20, but let's say he is. Now you're this little bit plus 20 million. Where do you go? You can't aggregate salaries, you know, so you can't put multiple guys together to land some kind of a star player. I just don't know where the Nuggets would go if they're not okay with being in the second apron. Now, Cam Johnson is another potential trade piece, but again, if I'm speaking as the Nuggets general manager, I'd rather have Cam Johnson than Peyton Watson. If you're making me choose, if I am faced with a Sophie's choice, I don't know that it's a little over dramatic, I acknowledge. But if you made me choose one, I'd want Cam Johnson. Maybe his first year in Denver wasn't all what you hoped and dreamed it would be, but Cam Johnson over the course of his career has done far more than Peyton Watson has, which is put together one good month. That's what we have on Peyton Watson's resume right now. It's still a lot of talk about potential and what he could be. With Cam Johnson, I know what he is. I think he'll be a little bit more comfortable with the Denver Nuggets in year two. And if it doesn't quite work out and you don't make some other moves, he is an expiring contract, which other than draft capital is probably the best asset you can have. So to me, it would be hasty for the Denver Nuggets to simply dump Cam Johnson to get out of the second apron when it feels like Cam Johnson can not only help them more as a player, but maybe more attractive to teams between now and the trade deadline than Peyton Watson would be at this point. But I just, the Nuggets, to me, it feels like they got to do something. I can't, I know we talked about a scenario in which the Nuggets are just dumping a ton of salary. I think it's settled down to the point where maybe it's not 2, 3, 4 players that they're getting rid of, but they got to lower their wage bill here. So I think a move is coming. Is it with Peyton Watson or is it with Cam Johnson? That remains to be seen. And does that happen now or does that happen closer to the trade deadline? We don't even know what Peyton Watson's going to sign for. That's the next step in all of this. But if the Nuggets are willing, after all of this, to actually be in the second apron this year. They are making the biggest bet in the history of the franchise. Like, literally, in terms of money, it is the biggest bet they have made. The math, depending on Peyton Watson's contract, is going to make this roster cost upwards of $500 million. $500 million. And I'm not one that cares that much about the tax bill. I know that Stan Kroenke is good for the money. My thing is, you're making this massive bet on a roster that got bounced in the first round of the playoffs. That's what would worry me if I'm a Nuggets fan. It's not what Stan Kroenke has to pay above and beyond, right? You don't have to really worry about, I know their numbers been floated out. Well, Spencer Jones makes $12 million. Well, it's not 12, it's more like 30, because I don't care about that stuff. Okay, it's just money. And it's not my money. But there are ramifications for being in the second apron, which basically boils down to you can't improve your team. That's basically what it is. You cannot improve your team. So the Nuggets are basically locking themselves in to this roster. The roster that got beat by the Minnesota Timberwolves again in the playoffs. It's not the amount they are betting. It is what they are betting on that would trouble me if I'm a Nuggets fan. Because this team that got bounced by Minnesota, as currently constructed, is not better than that one. You lost Tim Hardaway. You lost Jonas Valanciunas. You replaced him with Marvin Bagley. You drafted a couple of players. You're banking on Deron Holmes. Like, I just don't see it. There's so much for this team to prove, especially these young players. I can't sit here and say that this team is better than they were the last game of the Minnesota series. Who's the needle mover on this team? What am I missing here? They're into the second apron. And they're going to get further into the second apron if they're serious about locking up Peyton Watson long-term. And once they do that, even dumping Cam Johnson's not going to get them out of it. And that's why I've been leaning more towards two of those three players, Watson, Cam, and Aaron Gordon, not finishing this upcoming season with the Denver Nuggets. I just don't see how they're going to be in the second apron. After all, the talk was that they wanted to even avoid the repeater tax. But that's the thing about this Nuggets offseason right now. Because there's been so little noise, so little movement, I don't know that we fully know what's going on. What is the thought process here? We really don't know, because the Denver Nuggets have been as passive. Some of it is not their fault. Some of it is just this financial model the NBA has in place. But they have been one of the quietest teams this offseason. So I don't know that we know 100% what the plan is. So all we can take it is move by move. And the latest move is they're willing to go into the second apron to retain the services of Spencer Jones. Are they willing to go deeper into it by signing Peyton Watson, or is this a sign that they're going to try and move on from Peyton Watson? I'll take your thoughts. 719-247-1313. And then there's another aspect of this. Did Oklahoma City do this on purpose? Is Sam Presti trying to sabotage one of his team's biggest rivals? Just getting going on this edition of Drive Time Sports. Coming up next, it was a perfect month of July for Colorado Springs Switchbacks FC. One of the big reasons why is the play of Talon Maples, and he will join me coming up next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Switchbacks defender Talon Maple set to join me here momentarily. Popping on right now. So without further ado, let's talk Switchback soccer. How about them Switchbacks? A perfect month of July with a 2-1 win Saturday against Charleston Battery. Joining me now is a big reason why he holds down the Switchbacks back line. He is Talon Maples. Talon, how was your July?
It's been really fun. It's been fun to say the least. We've been having a good time, and you're always having fun when you're winning, like you just said. So hopefully we can end the month off perfect and get another win and go on in the next one.
Absolutely. And I build Saturday's match as kind of one of these showcase matches. You guys only see Charleston once. They're near the top of the table. You guys are near the top of the table in your respective conferences. And a lot of eyeballs across the league were on that matchup. So what do you think that your team said to the rest of the league with everybody watching like they were on Saturday?
Just something that we've been telling ourselves the entire year, and something that we've been trying to just remind ourselves every week is that we are a top team, and we're trying to be that every week. We're not walking into places expecting teams to roll over or expecting, teams to be fearful of us, but we want to show you that in the way that we play and how hard we work and the results that we get. So I think, getting the results against a good opponent that's been, very successful in the league for many, many years. At this time, the way we did was good for us and was another reminder of like, hey, we can be who we want to be, and we are who we've been saying we want to be.
Yeah, and how about the way you guys did that? Because if you would have, when they equalized in the 81st minute, I think there would have been some feeling from people that zooming out 3 wins and a draw, unbeaten month of July, would be still very good. It didn't seem the way you guys played that was going to be okay with you. So what was it about this team? What did you say to each other? I mean, how did you guys see that out and make sure that you were going to get all 3 points on Saturday?
Yeah, I think you're completely right. I don't think anybody, if we would have left that game 1-1, I think they would have been, which they're a very good team and I respect them, but I think they would have been very happy with that result of a 1-1 win, and we would have been the ones being upset about it. And that's kind of how a few of our results this year have gone, where we've gotten a tie last minute or we've lost a game last minute. It's just like, very, very frustrating. So I think in that moment, we kind of gathered together. I think their goalkeeper got an injury or there was a head injury or something. And I don't know. I think we'd all kind of felt like this game isn't over. Like we're going to score again. It's not going to end this way. And I just went up to Jonas, actually, which is funny. I'm not taking credit for anything, even though I told him he should give me his goal bonus. I told him, I said, listen here, brother, you're going to go take this game. Like, go do what you know you can. And like, this is the moment where, you're about to go take over. And I was very fortunate that he scored, a couple minutes afterwards. But, I just felt like there was that belief throughout the team. Like, it didn't matter how many minutes were left, how many plays we had in us. Like, there was something was going to happen. We were going to give ourselves another good chance of winning the game.
So you heard it here first. Talon Maples called Jonas's match winner in the 95th minute. Well, what is it? Why go to him? I mean, what is it about Jonas where you're like, where you said that to him? Where do you get that belief in him from? What is it about him that makes you so confident?
Yeah. I think, well, I'm going to be really honest with you. I think all of our wingers can do that no matter what. Jonas, just this past month in training and in games, I just feel like he's been on top of it, and he's been a guy that's just making stuff happen, and not to like AP's doing the same, Saddam's doing the same, Yosa's doing the same, Levy was doing the same, like all these guys were, and it was just in that moment I was like, this guy, like he's in good form, like I'm just gonna tell him, as I told Saddam, I was like, Saddam, keep doing what you're doing, you're making it dangerous for us, just give us a chance. But I don't know, something about Jonas in that moment, I knew, I was like, he's about to go change the game for us, and we're about to come out here with 3 points.
Talon Maples, Switchbacks defender, my guest. So in the month of July, you guys outscore your opponents 10-2. I'm sure you like both numbers. I think the 2 is the one that you like the most. What have you guys unlocked defensively to make yourselves so difficult to score against as you have been over the past month?
Yeah, I think being consistent. I think we had a couple hiccups. I personally had a couple hiccups in the beginning of the season. That I told the team that I owned up to, and that's not me. And I think that we've kind of had that type of like accountability throughout the season, which will always pay dividends. If you just stay consistent and stay with it. I think something that we've done really well over the past month, and even before that, was just the way that we keep the ball kind of deteriorates teams and it wears you down to where when you have the ball, you don't have enough to go at us. Now you're taking more risk, like you're doing things you normally wouldn't because you're tired. So I think that that's definitely helped out. Our midfield has been amazing in terms of their rotations and how they keep the ball and also how they defend. And we put a really big emphasis these past month and even before that of just selling out. We're tired of letting in easy goals. Blocking shots, blocking as many as we can. I mean, well, I'm just trying to think before Tulsa and even after Tulsa, we've had maybe like 2 shots on target on average,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a little bit more. And even then, we're talking about it. Well, we need it. We can bring that down. Like we're good enough to where we can limit teams to less than that. So I really think it's just being consistent in what we've been doing, and then just being more kind of ruthless. I tell the guys like let's just be a little bit more nasty. Not in the way of like fouling people or doing stuff like that, but like, hey, like we're blocking everything. Like if you're gonna get past him, you got to go through me next, and it's keeps on going down the line and the line and the line, and by the time you get through all of us, you don't have enough in you.
Mm-hmm. Talon Maples, my guest. You mentioned your start to this season, and you came into this league. You won Newcomer of the Year down in New Mexico. I know, and I've told you this. We were really excited to be getting you up here. So I'm sure your standards for yourself are the highest that anyone's could be. How difficult was that start to the season for you, trying to find your fit in a new place, all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, yeah. I made it difficult. I'll
Mm.
put that out there first. It was, the club, the organization was great to me and my family, and has been great to me and my family, and I have no complaints and no complaints in what happened in the off season, 100%. I think that I came in and I just wanted to show how consistent I was. Not the fans will always see what they see on the field, but like mainly to the guys. I
Mm.
want the guys to trust me. I want them to know that I'm going to be there and do the things that I need to do in the moments and in the big moments. He's there. Um, and I think I had a couple hiccups at the beginning of the year, and it was more like I need to do more to show these guys, and instead of just being like no, like I'm gonna be all right. Nothing changed from last year to this year in terms of the type of player I am. I'm just trying to get better and better every day and trying to go win some games on the weekend. So I think, just reminding myself of that, and then, ultimately just going out and proving it week by week, practice by practice, just showing these guys, hey, like, I'm here to win games with you guys and for you guys, not just because of me, but because I love you guys and I want you guys to know that.
That's awesome. Talon Maple is my guest. Let's talk about the guy that you've played with a lot lately as that center back duo, Garvin Matusla. What about his game complements yours so well?
Yeah, he's a beast. I'll start off with that. We have beast of defenders, so it makes my job a lot easier. Um, he's as all center backs, and I feel like in our organization we all have similar mentalities in terms of like we are kind of grinders. There's no part of the game where we're looking at each other like he's not going to show up or he's not going to be there. So that makes it easier first and foremost. That's kind of what we look for, and then I think we've been in a good run of form in terms of kind of I know where he's going to be defensively. He knows what I'm going to do defensively, and it's just more of a consistency thing in terms of playing next to people over and over again. And then on the ball, I think he's a heck of a player. Being able to pass and be able to break lines, and we kind of see similar things. So I think when that happens, we're able to play, and it flows a lot easier on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, sure looks like it. And then I know you guys were a little bit banged up the other day, but the way that I talked with Alan, and he thought Patrick has played as well as anybody on this team this year, and in the way that Aiden has been playing. But I think Saturday, and I think you'll co-sign this, Talent, just shows how much depth there is. I mean, Matt coming in, Isaiah, you guys, yeah, there seems to be a back four that Allen's been going to start matches, but man, it doesn't seem like the confidence level drops off if a guy is out of the lineup or a guy subs in for you guys on that back line right now.
Yeah, 100%. I think that that's what this team is kind of priding itself on is the amount of competition that we do have. And I think that that's what's kind of driving our success lately. It's just a lot of competition throughout the week. And, Al's made it clear in terms of, it's a week by week thing. So go win the week and make sure you win your game on Saturday or whenever, this next month's going to be crazy. So making sure that we do the job when we have to. But then also, I mean, these guys are, Duke and Isaiah, they stepped up and they started and they played so well. Dukey's left-footed playing on the right side. Rocha's right-footed playing on the left side when he's in, and it's looking like they're just so natural at it and game changers. And then Matt comes in and is closing out games like he's. We got guys that do the job.
Absolutely. You talked about winning the week. Well, this week it's a big one with New Mexico United. I'm curious, how was it going back there the first time?
Yeah, bittersweet. Man, that club took a chance on me when I had nothing. So they'll always have a special place in my heart, and that's just a personal thing. I tell this to guys who don't really know me, but I was in a tiny Airbnb about the size of a bathroom and a half with my pregnant wife, not having anything, thinking maybe I need to go get a job, make sure I support my family. And Eric Quill at the time had called me and asked me where I was, and I said I don't have anything, and he gave me a trial there. So that's why they have a special place in my heart because I had nothing. So going back was nice to see, familiar faces. But it was also bitter in the way that I'm with another team now, and I love my boys on my team now. And I'm fighting against them, and that's okay. That's how I want it to be. I want to win games, and I love the Switchbacks. I love the Springs. I love everything about it. And so I get to fight for another city that's amazing. So it's cool. It was cool going there in the first time, and I got a very warm welcome from majority of the fans, and so that was very nice. But as the season's gone on, these are my boys that I'm playing for here, and these are the guys I'm gonna fight for.
Yeah, they might boo you on the first time around, Talent, it's all love and welcome back, and then the next time they're fully used to you in a different jersey, and that's a great fan base down there. So I'm sure they'll have some fun with you on Saturday. Hopefully you could get the last laugh with another win for the Switchbacks Saturday night, 7:30 in the lab. You can hear it here on Extra Sports 1300 with Roland and myself on the call. Talon, this was awesome. Appreciate you jumping on. Congrats on another great win. You guys certainly make it fun for us watching the match, and go get another one on Saturday, huh?
I appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time. You have a good one.
Yeah, you too, Talon. That is Talon Maples, Switchbacks defender, joining me here on Drive Time Sports. You hear the just the type of guy Talon is, and him and I have talked. We're not buddies yet or anything like that, but you get a little window into who he is, and he's talking about him fighting for a job and talking about him living with his pregnant wife at the time, and then you hear about his early season struggles. A couple of bad plays led to goals against Colorado Springs, and how hard he took that. And you want guys to care that much, right? And I think that's one of the main things that Alan McCann likes about Talon is how much he cares, and his teammates love him for it as well. And you heard a lot of that come through from Talon here in our conversation. So great to have him on. Shouts as always to Ashley for making that happen. She's the best. And again, Saturday night, big one against New Mexico United, 7:30 here on Extra Sports 1300. We'll keep it rolling. Coming up next, is it just me or do we have too many good quarterbacks in the NFL? Let's do something about that. Want to see every Air Force football home game this season? Well, we're giving you a chance. Myself, along with my good colleague, Jim Arthur, are giving you chances all next week to get qualified to win 4 season tickets to this upcoming Air Force football season. So you want to be listening 5 to 8 a.m. on KVOR, and then this show 3 to 6 for your chances to qualify. And then as we get closer to the season, a winner will be drawn, and you will be going to every single Air Force football game this upcoming season. Have you noticed, and I'm being serious with this, have you noticed that we have more good quarterbacks in the NFL today? I'm not saying great, but good. I think more good quarterbacks in the NFL than I can remember in a long time. And good meaning that the fan base over the last couple of years, I think more fan bases than in the past are at least content with who they've got, at least willing to see what their quarterbacks got, right? And obviously Denver is among them, because this season for Bo Nix will be about, is he the dude? Is he a great quarterback? Or is he good? And good means you're going to want to keep surrounding him with talent. Great means you don't need as much talent around him. And that's what this year is going to be about with Bo Nix. And he doesn't really factor into this conversation that we're about to have, because I don't think he's on this in this group. Not that he's not a good quarterback. Let me explain. So I think his draft class has contributed to this, the reclamation project of Sam Darnold. It just feels like right now there are a lot of good quarterbacks in the league. And I feel like we need to thin the herd a little bit. And I think we're going to. Because as the Broncos and many other teams report for training camp, some are already, the Panthers and Cardinals are already there because they play the Hall of Fame game. I think this season, a major storyline is going to be the number of quarterbacks that we collectively, as people who watch football, are going to be out on. Like, I can't remember the last time there were this many quarterbacks that I say, if things don't go that well for them, like, we're going to write them off forever. And the one at the top of the list, you don't have to travel out of the AFC West. It's Justin Herbert. Right? I mean, I feel like truly this time, this is it for Justin Herbert. The hypotheticals, the if, that's all going to go out the window. He's got Mike McDaniel, who is a goofy offensive genius. If Justin Herbert can't put up big numbers, I think Justin Herbert should be in the MVP conversation this year. I think the Chargers have every opportunity to win the AFC West. If those things don't happen, then I think that's one quarterback that the general populace is going to be like, never again. Never again. Out on Justin Herbert. I'll give you one that people are already doing this to. Lamar Jackson. Fell 50-something spots in the NFL top 100. His own brethren are burying him. He's no longer viewed by people in the NFL as that holy trinity that used to be with him and Mahomes and Allen. So Lamar, we've already started to do this. I don't get it. I'm not out on Lamar, but a lot of people are. Justin Herbert, again, being another one. How about Jalen Hurts? And this is tough for him because he just lost his best wide receiver, but Jalen Hurts' shortcomings as a quarterback are kind of the reason why A.J. Brown's in New England right now, right? New offensive coordinator in Philadelphia as well. If Jalen Hurts doesn't figure it out, and it's going to be tough without A.J. Brown, but if he doesn't figure it out, he could look like the fourth best quarterback in that division, depending on Jackson Dart's trajectory. I mean, Jalen Hurts already isn't better than Dak. Jaden Daniels comes back healthy and is producing. He's not better than him. So that's another one. CJ Stroud. We have pinpointed with CJ Stroud that if the Houston Texans are not competing to go to a Super Bowl, right? Playing in the AFC Championship, winning their division, having one of the best records in the AFC, all of these kind of things, and it's still a very winnable division, right? If Houston is not in that conversation, if they're not going for that, we've pinpointed it's on CJ Stroud. Because the defense that Houston has might be the best in the league. So we've been seeing this a little bit with CJ Stroud. If Houston is not a Super Bowl contender this year, CJ Stroud is the one to blame, and we'll always wonder what happened to him after that rookie season. How about Brock Purdy? You know, he gets Mike Evans, Christian McCaffrey back, George Kittle back. If he can't get it done, I think a lot of people are going to be out on him. How about Baker Mayfield, who lost Mike Evans? I've said there is no quarterback in this league that on these lists and in just public perception that has more wild swings between being just outside of elite territory to marginal starting quarterback. It's Baker Mayfield. We live and die on every Baker Mayfield season and make big proclamations about who this guy is based on his performance. And losing one of his most reliable receivers. If Tyler Shuck ends up winning the division, where are we going to be at on Baker Mayfield? And here's the easiest one. This is the lowest hanging fruit. Loser of the Vikings quarterback battle, we're done. J.J. McCarthy, Kyler Murray, whoever loses that quarterback battle, we're out on. And for J.J. McCarthy, that's tough because he hasn't been around that long. But if he can't win this job, which, by the way, I don't think he will, but if he doesn't win this job, like, he better hang a poster of Sam Darnold on his wall because that's going to be his role model. He better find a way. He better get his butt to San Francisco or to L.A. as soon as he possibly can and get rehabilitated so he can have a second shot at an NFL career. For Kyler Murray, it's easy. If you don't beat out J.J. McCarthy, done. But there are just so many quarterbacks across this league that you're just looking at and you're like, I think I'm about done with this guy. What about Jordan Love? I don't have him on my list, but he's another one that I kind of put out there like, what does Jordan Love have to do? I know last year Micah Parsons gets hurt, and a lot of people point to that. And that's the thing about a lot of these guys on the list is that we have made excuses or pointed out reasons. Say sometimes an excuse is just a reason people don't want to listen to. It's all how you frame it, but there are reasons, excuses why some of these quarterbacks are on the verge of us being done with them. But in the end, sometimes it doesn't matter. What is Jordan Love, especially if Micah Parsons is healthy, what is this Packers team supposed to do? I'll liken it a lot to CJ Stroud. If they have a healthy Micah Parsons, why aren't the Packers competing for a Super Bowl? And then there are a couple more that are on my list. How about Bryce Young, Daniel Jones? We kind of got a little bit back in with those two guys this year. Carolina's schedule is going to be more difficult. I don't know that with Bryce Young, I don't know that we were in ever, but we weren't completely out on Bryce Young quite yet. We might be this year. And then Daniel Jones coming off of an injury. I think we're waiting for him to be basically not even a one-hit wonder because he didn't last the whole season, but whatever portion of one hit Daniel Jones was last year. So I think these quarterback lists, they're going to get a little bit easier for us. And I'm not look, there's still the upper echelon, and you and I can debate whether Lamar Jackson is a part of that, but we all got Stafford and Burrow and Mahomes and Josh Allen up there, right? I'm not saying that everybody left in the league is knocking on that door, but you've seen with these lists that have come out that we've talked about, it's like once you get past like 6, I mean, you could go either way with like a dozen different guys. Right? Lawrence, Nix, Caleb, Jaden Daniels, some of these guys, Jalen Hurts, Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, Jordan Love. It's like 1 through 5 to me, 1 through 5 in whatever order you put them in, but it's those 5, they're set. And then everybody else is a notch below. But you could argue that, and we've seen this, especially around Bo Nix. There are people truly arguing that Bo Nix is one of the top 6 or 7 quarterbacks in the league. I don't agree. But I can't sit here and say that I don't see where people are getting it from, because everybody's kind of in this mess of good but maybe not great quarterbacks. And a lot of them, have really good rosters. Purdy, Nix, Goff, they all have really good rosters. Baker Mayfield is another one. Tampa Bay had a good roster. So there's just so many guys in this 6 through 17, 18, 19, somewhere in there, that it's just like on any given day, any given week, these guys can move 5 or 6 notches up or down from where they are. So I just think it's easier for us if we just got rid of like 6 of these guys and just said, nope, not talking about these guys anymore. Not looking at them and ranking them in the top 10. Herbert, Hurts, Mayfield, CJ Stroud. And then there are some other quarterbacks that will just be like done. Like, don't tell me about Kyler Murray anymore. Don't tell me about JJ McCarthy anymore. Don't be knocking on my door with Bryce Young or Daniel Jones propaganda. Don't want to hear it. I think, and not just because of the public perception, but I think a lot of these quarterbacks have truly a lot on the line. Because you just feel like if they can't get it done, and I'll go back to Herbert and CJ Stroud specifically. I mean, how long is it feasible for Houston and LA to keep the window open, hoping that these guys will climb through and lead them to a Super Bowl? I know we always talk about quarterbacks, and that's our main focus. I understand that, but it does seem like the quarterbacking around the league is going to be a big topic of conversation this upcoming season. 719-24-7-1313. Take your thoughts on that. Coming up next, did OKC mess up the Denver Nuggets? Welcome in. Appreciate you tuning in, whether you're listening to the show, Extra Sports 1300, 740 KVOR, or you're watching the show anywhere you scroll, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, and X. We are in all of those places, and the easiest way to find us in those places is to follow at Extra Sports 1300, at 740 KVOR. You can follow me on those platforms. I am at Gingerly Tweets on X and at Gingerwatch on Instagram. 719-247-1313 is the number if you'd like to take your participation with today's show to the next level, and I always appreciate it when you do. The hot button issue is the Nuggets getting into the second apron late last night. Never thought I would be sitting on my couch looking at the clock, waiting for 10 o'clock Mountain Time to come around to find out if the Nuggets would match an offer for Spencer Jones. But there I was. Thankfully, I did not have to wait till 10. The news came out a little bit less than an hour before that the Nuggets would indeed match Oklahoma City's 2-year, $12 million offer for Spencer Jones, who is, you can find him on LinkedIn most of the time. That's where he likes to spend his social media time. But the initial reaction when OKC offered this to Spencer Jones was, is Sam Presti trying to screw over the Denver Nuggets? Is there malice in the heart of Sam Presti? Because it's a fun joke, right, that Presti did this. But did he really? And I pondered this. Sam Presti is the guy that, yes, looks out for the well-being of the Oklahoma City Thunder above all else. That's his main motivation. How do I make the Thunder better? But he's also the guy that I would imagine takes immense pride in the fact that he basically has the entire league in a chokehold because they own everyone's draft picks. So you're telling me that guy didn't look at this move and think beyond just what Spencer Jones could be for the Thunder? You don't think that he looked at the Denver Nuggets situation, identifying them as one of the few teams that you could even make an argument could beat them in a 7-game series? I don't know how good that argument is, but it's better than LA's argument, right? You don't think for a second he thought, you know what? Added bonus, I can put them into the second apron. I think absolutely that was part of the thought from Sam Presti. Here's what I think Sam Presti was thinking. First and foremost, I could make, or with the help of Mark Dagno, we could make Spencer Jones the new Lou Dort and basically weaponize him against the Denver Nuggets. Similar situation to when Hook kidnapped Jack, Peter Pan's son, and tried to turn him into a mini Captain Hook. He was weaponizing Peter Pan's son against him. I don't know if Sam Presti likes the movie Hook. It's one of the foundational movies of my childhood, so I'm going to go with that analogy. But I can use Spencer Jones to be my new Lou Dort and deploy him to foul the crap out of Nikola Jokic, just like Lou Dort used to do. I think that was his main reason for offering what he offered. But then he says, I'm in a no-lose situation. It's not that much money to sign Spencer Jones, and I legitimately think he could do some of the things that Lou Dort did, like trip people and hit an occasional three. So I'm going to get him. And if I don't get him, if they match, well, now guess what? One of the few teams that can actually be mentioned in the same sentence as us is now in salary cap Hades. I absolutely think Sam Presti, a guy that repeatedly we talk about playing 4D chess, how is he not thinking this? He absolutely did this on purpose. And the Nuggets willingly, at least willingly because they matched the offer. I don't know what those conversations were in the Nuggets front offices. I got to imagine a few expletives flew when that offer sheet was given to Spencer Jones. But they in the end acquiesced and said, all right, we're matching. And now we're into the second apron. The one place that no one in the league wants to be in. The place that Josh Kroenke tried to, use scare tactics against us a season ago by saying if we go into this second apron and we suffer an injury, we got to trade Nikola Jokic. So the optics of the Nuggets willingly going into that apron for Spencer Jones, of all people, is a little bizarre. But the clock starts now, and they have from now until the trade deadline this upcoming season to get under it before a lot of harm befalls them. Having a draft pick, which, by the way, the draft pick is in 2034. Let me say that again. The next tradable Nuggets first-round pick is in the year 2034. Thank you, Calvin Booth. That would become frozen. The Nuggets couldn't use that to move anybody. They couldn't combine players to get a better player. They lose a mid-level exception, which is a great way to get a Tim Hardaway Jr. or a Jonas Valanciunas type to join your team. All of these ramifications technically would not happen to the Denver Nuggets until after the trade deadline. But the clock is ticking. And it does hamstring the Denver Nuggets a little bit right now. Because you have a decision to make with Peyton Watson. And one of the only real ways you can move Peyton Watson is by getting nothing but draft capital in return. Was Sam Presti thinking about that? Now we're treading into a territory like Sam Presti's got a lot of irons in the fire. I don't know how far ahead he's thinking about, but I think he was thinking if the Nuggets are in the second apron, well, they're going to have a difficult time, so that's good enough. But if you move Peyton Watson for just draft capital, say what you will about your belief or lack thereof in Peyton Watson, the Nuggets are worse because they gave away a player for nothing, or at least nothing that they have right now. And I saw something on social media a little while ago about a report that the Nuggets are trying to give Peyton Watson a 4-year deal just over $80 million, which I will say if that's what they're offering, I think that's fair for Peyton Watson's body of work. $20 million a year. But of course, Rich Paul, they don't like that because they're looking at Christian Brown making $25 million a year and saying, why shouldn't our guy get paid that much at least? That should be the floor, not the ceiling. So if these contract negotiations are at an impasse and the Nuggets are saying we'd rather get draft capital in return for Peyton Watson than to essentially rent him for one more season and lose him for nothing, because you know that Clutch Sports is going to tell Peyton Watson under no circumstances are you to re-sign with the Denver Nuggets if they keep you for a year under the qualifying offer. So if they decide to do that, they're still in the second apron. And that's the thing that, yeah, maybe Sam Presti nudged them over that ledge, but they were right there. I mean, this idea that the Nuggets would be able to escape this, I think is laughable at this point. If Spencer Jones pushes them over, they were always going to be into the second apron. And are the Nuggets really okay with that? Because if they dump Peyton Watson for nothing, still in the second apron. If they get a lesser contract in return for Peyton Watson, they save a little bit of money by trading Peyton Watson. Maybe they get around to getting that point guard that David Adelman said at the outset of this offseason they so desperately needed but have yet to acquire. Maybe they get around to doing that and use Peyton Watson as the trade bait to get that. They're still in the second apron. And this is why I said at the very least, Cam Johnson, Peyton Watson, Aaron Gordon, pick one that aren't going to be on this team for very much longer. And it looks more like there will be two of those players that won't be, or you could go Cam Johnson and Peyton Watson are gone, Aaron Gordon stays, or just Aaron Gordon goes and the other two stay. I mean, this is, the Nuggets could not have asked for this. This is not, I don't think this is by design. But what I keep coming back to with this Denver Nuggets team, I just don't know that they have a choice or much of a choice in the matter. They are just, these financial rules are so dumb, and they have hurt the NBA product just in the short time that they have been implemented. But that's a big reason why they're in the position they're in. And then they got Calvin Booth rolling through town, trading multiple first-round picks so he can trade up to get Deron Holmes, and trading future second-round picks to dump Reggie Jackson's contract. All these, and for a guy that sat there in an interview and with a straight face said he made the general manager job look easy. So the financial rules started it. Calvin Booth perpetuated it. I just think that I want to be fair to Ben Tenzer and John Wallace. I just don't think there's a lot of things that they can do. I think they're just living day to day until an opportunity falls into their lap. Last year, an opportunity fell into their lap. The Brooklyn Nets are like, yeah, I think we'd like Michael Porter. And so they made that deal. End up getting Hardaway and Valanciunas, but then immediately lose them. I mean, they acquired them with, in retrospect, you look at it and you say, they were never going to hang on to those two guys. They were always going to be one and done in Denver. Okay, so what's the plan? Marvin Bagley, Alpha Diallo, they're just like jumping from one lily pad to the next, but they're like 5 lily pads away from being in a good spot. How long is this going to take? And that's why I keep saying, like, look, they don't have a lot of decisions that they can make. Right? I think that's become clear. Right? And a lot of that has to do with their predecessor. Okay? They don't have any young players other than Peyton Watson that anybody, no one wants Deron Holmes, no one wants Julian Strawther. So you can't move these young players to get a veteran. So that's not their fault. But then I look at it and I say, one, you signed Christian Brown. So that's kind of on you. And then the second thing is I keep saying the deals they're willing to make. I keep saying it, and it's not because I'm down on Jamal Murray. But I have said from the beginning that the way that this team can truly affect real change, and yes, they would be taking a step back this year to take a step forward, is to trade Jamal Murray. But by all indications, they haven't broached the subject with anybody. They won't even gauge his market. Because outside of Nikola Jokic, and this may be a referendum on where the Nuggets are as a franchise right now, he's probably your second most valuable asset. But it just seems like the Nuggets are unwilling to make the difficult decision. And that has been a theme of this offseason. It just feels like they're sitting there, not doing anything, and letting just the NBA take its course. Right? Tim Hardaway goes to Miami, Jonas Valanciunas going to Europe to play. Okay, we'll bring in a couple of players because we have to at this point. Peyton Watson, they're just kind of letting it go. Spencer Jones, not proactive about it. Let OKC swoop in, offer him a deal. Okay, well, now we got to match it. It just seems like they're a step behind, that they're playing catch up. They're reactive, not proactive. And some of it I understand, and some of it is not on the current front office, omitting Josh Kroenke because obviously he's been the through line with all of this. But I'm just saying Tenzer and Wallace. It's not all on them. But at the same time, there's a difficult decision, I grant you, but there's one out there that I truly believe can undo this huge knot that the Nuggets franchise has been twisted into, but they don't seem willing to do that. Because they can't bear the thought of breaking up the duo of Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. Which, again, difficult decision. I acknowledge that. Not going to be super popular to trade Jamal Murray. I understand that as well. Would you be better next year having traded him? No. But now let's look at the alternative. Okay, so there's my plan. Nuggets hate it, clearly. Okay, let's see what your plan is. You've lost Valanciunas. You've lost Hardaway. You've replaced them with lesser players. And now you have been forced into the second apron by a rival of yours. You still have the Peyton Watson deal hanging. So basically your choice is you can either live in the second apron and be way deep into the second apron to where you can't even see your way out. And you're a lesser team this year. So they may not agree with my stance, but which way are the Nuggets getting better? I say one step forward to take, or one step back to take two steps forward. They're just keep taking a step back, a step back, a step back, a step back with no plan, with no, we don't see anything on the horizon to believe that this team's going to get out of this. But it will be fascinating. It will be fascinating to see what they do with Peyton Watson now. I guess we should have been talking this way since they were so close to the second apron that it was inevitable that they were going to go into it. But what do you do now? Is Spencer Jones the new Peyton Watson? You dump Peyton Watson. Well, guess what? Still in the second apron, you're going to also dump Cam Johnson? And this is just to get out of the second apron. There's still, this roster is still going to cost twice as much as what it says on paper with all the tax penalties. Again, I started the show with this. We got to be fair to the Cronkies. If this roster costs upwards of $500 million, they're not being cheap. But I don't think this is what we had in mind. 719-247-1313. Nuggets in the second apron. Where do they go from here? More Drive Time Sports after this. Family fun doesn't have to cost a fortune. Save half off or more on attractions like Overdrive Raceway, Bogies and Brews, and the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Museum. With our Sweet Deals program, you can shop now at extrasports1300.com or kvor.com. They live on the websites. But go there. Some great deals going on right now for attractions, but also food. Some really good establishments giving you a great deal as well. 719-247-1313. Got a text coming in asking if I would briefly describe what the second apron is. So the NBA desperately wants a hard salary cap, but the players will not agree to it. So what the owners did is create an apron system and basically to limit, to artificially push down salaries. This is what they're doing. But because they can't have a hard cap, they do these aprons where it's like if you're driving and there's a bridge out and then you get like a sign about a mile ahead that says there's a bridge out, or like 2 miles ahead, there's a bridge out, like might want to take an alternate route, and then you keep driving and there's another one like, no, seriously, the bridge is out, and then the bridge is out and you go over the cliff. That's essentially what the second apron is. So it's a threshold of your payroll that if you go over it, there are ramifications. And those ramifications are, one, they will freeze a draft pick of yours. The next tradable first-round pick you have, which for the Denver Nuggets is in 2034, because they have just flushed all of their draft picks down the drain. But it will be frozen, which means you can't trade it. Right? Second thing, you're not going to be able to take two players to make it worth one. Like, for instance, Steph Curry might be getting a little disgruntled with the Warriors front office, and I was playing with the trade machine, and Cam Johnson and Jamal Murray for Steph Curry would work financially. If you're in the second apron, you can't do that. Everything's got to be one for one, and you can't take a dollar over the salaries. So you essentially have to make the salaries exactly the same. Can't aggregate salaries, can't put multiple salaries together, and any salary that you do trade, you got to take back dollar for dollar. Or the other team has to take on more money. And then there's the mid-level exception, which is a popular way to bring in cheaper veteran players because they have reached a certain threshold that you can't pay them what you pay a rookie. But it won't, you're allowed within the cap to be able to sign these guys. Well, that would be taken away from you as well. So basically what the second apron does, and this is not a short explanation, I apologize, but there's so many different things to it. Basically what the second apron does is lock in your roster. That's essentially what it does. You cannot do normal NBA business because you have ruined your cap so badly that you do not deserve to be able to call other basketball teams or other players and try to improve your team. That's essentially what the NBA tells teams that are in the second apron. So the Nuggets, when they decide, if they decide to sign Peyton Watson, which they still can do because they have his rights, it will put them that much further into the second apron, which if they wanted to get out to avoid all these penalties, they would have to dump multiple big contracts to get out of it and avoid all those penalties. So hopefully that somewhat clears it up. But that actually brings me to my just huge issue with what the NBA has done here. They have taken one of the best times on the calendar. Remember how fun NBA free agency used to be? It was a blast. And alongside free agency, we would have these great trades. Now, to be fair, we've had a couple of blockbuster trades, have we not? But what were they born out of? And what was the, blockbuster trade to me is, yes, you give up many assets for one star player, but I also classify blockbuster trades as you get a star and we get a star, right? Big names going back and forth. Boston, I guess Paul George is a big name, but he's not a great player at this point. Miami didn't give up any great players to get Giannis. Those blockbuster trades, or what we would consider a blockbuster trade, were born out of the fact that Boston did not want to go into that second apron. But free agency used to be so fun. And I get it. Teams would get a little bit drunk and they would go out and they give Solomon Hill $25 million. And you're like, what are you doing? So apparently these billionaire owners, they are not good enough with their money to be able to use it wisely. So the NBA has stepped in, or Adam Silver has been empowered to put in these rules to where their money gets controlled for them. And they could say, oh, don't want to go in the second apron. But what the NBA offseason has essentially become a math problem. And that's not what you want. It's the summertime. Our whole lives, we grew up with the idea that in the summer, we don't have to do math. That's for the fall and winter. That's the school year. We don't do math during the summer. And now that's all the NBA has become. Oh, if we do this, we're into the repeater tax, which means we get, have to basically pay dollar for dollar. And it's all this kind of stuff. And it just it makes your head spin. How is that making the game better? And the answer is, it's a rhetorical question. It's not. It's making it worse. The fact that we can't understand what all of this means that you're not doing a good job, NBA. The NHL and the NFL have salary caps, just true salary caps. Yeah, we have to do a little bit of math there too, but there's like a number and it's like, well, you can't exceed it. Well, with the NBA, they can exceed it, but there are strings attached, which means more math. And then the problem that the Nuggets are facing, that the Celtics are facing, and other teams are facing is that they basically are either unable to improve their team or they have to voluntarily make their team worse, which is what Brad Stevens did. Brad Stevens voluntarily, I don't want to hear anything about Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum's dynamic, okay? The dynamic they wouldn't care about if it not for the second apron. If not for these financial rules. They wouldn't care. They won a title with those two guys. But the Celtics have to voluntarily get worse. And they've been doing it for 2 years in a row now, mind you. Just getting rid of dudes, making their team worse. Nuggets can improve their team. Celtics are getting worse. And it's part of the reason why we got 8 different champions in 8 years, because these teams can't stay together. None of this is good for the NBA. And I understand parity, NFL, I get it. NFL is the shining light on the hill, and everyone wants to be like the NFL, and the NFL has parity. It's parity to make the postseason. You know why they do that? Because they don't have a lottery system. They give the worst teams the number 1 pick. What a novel concept there. Just give the crappy teams what they're after so they stop being crappy. And they also manipulate the schedule to allow teams to have easier schedules to go up. They don't have parity when it comes to winning titles. We went from the Packers owning the NFL and dominating as a dynasty, and we went to the 49ers and the Cowboys, and then we went to the Patriots for 20 years, and then we're just now getting out of the Chiefs dynasty. So they don't have parity to win a title. They have parity to sneak into the postseason. The NBA is going all the way to the top, baby. Dynasties are dead. And now you look at all these teams and you're like, okay, they were really good that one year. But are any of these 8 teams going to be looked back on historically as a great team? Are we going to look at this Knicks team and start talking about comparing it to, the Bulls or the Celtics or the Lake? No. Nuggets the same way. Because the owners can't control their spending habits, they are making their product worse. And yes, this does come from a place of the team that I talk about the most being stuck in this prison ever since they won a title, but it's happening everywhere. And Jaylen Brown is a Sixer because of this. And the Sixers, you may be happy about this now, but I promise you, wait till the minute VJ Edgecombe needs an extension and you're breaking up that team. And losing LeBron's not going to do it. He's only making $4 million. You're going to have to part, and nobody's taking Joel Embiid, so you're going to have to decide if you want Jaylen Brown, VJ Edgecombe, or Tyrese Maxey. That day's coming for you. Oklahoma City's not going to be able to keep Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, and SGA together here in the very near future. Victor Wembanyama, first time he gets a chance to really get paid, has to take less money because he is scared that the Spurs won't be able to keep Steph Castle and Dylan Harper with him. Like, what are we doing here? Well, they say, what happened to the game I love? Now it's math and aprons. 719-247-1313. Back after this. Want to see every Air Force football home game this upcoming season? Well, we've got your chance. Be listening to this show. And my good buddy, I'm his buddy. He's my buddy. I don't know if I'm his buddy. Jim Arthur, 5A to 8A on at 740 KVOR. He'll be qualifying listeners to win 4 season tickets to Air Force football. I'll be qualifying listeners for the same thing, and then we will come together and we will pick one winner to get 4 tickets to every Air Force football home game this upcoming season. So be listening. We'll start qualifying people next week, but just want to get it on your radar. Speaking of getting things on your radar, first, the texter that asked about for me to explain the second apron responded by saying, that's insane. It is insane. It's insane. But the Nuggets are living in that insanity. And they're the only team right now that is in the second apron. Only one. Can't imagine they're going to stay there. We'll talk more about that coming up at the top of the hour. But speaking of getting things on your radar, how about this? We've had our first, as I almost poked my eye out, we've had our first significant trade demand of this NFL season. Yes, I'm not missing anybody. Vita Vea has formally requested a trade from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, according to multiple NFL insiders, including Mike Garafolo. And it's funny when something like this breaks, and obviously Vita Vea is one of the best, if not the best, nose tackles, defensive tackles in the National Football League. I pulled up one tweet, and I think every single NFL team was mentioned in the comments. He's a Bengal. Chiefs, go get him. Got to be the Patriots. Come to the Denver Broncos. Every single NFL franchise was represented in the comments section on some of these tweets. And I'll just say, for the Broncos, I mean, yeah, why not? I mean, this is a Super Bowl or bust year, is it not? And that's actually one of the few, to the Broncos' credit, one of the few positions that has gotten worse from last season is defensive tackle. But what the Broncos are betting on is Malcolm Roach. They're saying Malcolm Roach, when they brought him in, he was capable of being a number one guy. And I'm actually looking at the Broncos depth chart, and they got DJ Jones, who I got to admit, until I saw that, I forgot he was on the team. Remember such a big deal he was when they signed him, and then not much. They actually have Malcolm Roach as the defensive end in a 3-4, and basically a defensive tackle. I know football purists are going to poke holes in that, but to me, a 3-4 defensive end is basically a defensive tackle. But you have Roach, Jones, and Zach Allen on that defensive line. Zach Allen definitely doesn't play in the middle of that. Bring in Vita Vea. That'd be a huge upgrade for the Denver Broncos. It would be, I won't say it would be as significant for the defense as Jalen Waddle is for the offense, because I don't believe that's true. I think Jalen Waddle is massive for the Denver Broncos offense. Vita Vea would make a good unit even better. But I think that's kind of where the Broncos will fall on this. if the Buccaneers are in any mood to acquiesce to his request, which, by the way, I don't think they will be. I think this is your normal start of training camp posturing. We'll see how far Vita Vea goes for it. I mean, he just saw Jacoby Brissett get a $10 million bump this season by the Arizona Cardinals by holding in. So I think Vita Vea is going to go that route. So we're a ways away from this being settled between Vita Vea and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't think that the Bucs are going to let him go. The Bucs are a team that you can, if you squint and look into the sun and tilt your head, you might be able to see a team capable of making a deep playoff run, although the NFC is stacked. It's absolutely stacked. I don't know if the Buccaneers are going to, I mean, they can certainly win their division. I'll at least say that. Are they Seattle? Are they LA? No. But I know there are a lot of teams that you like. Do you love? Who else do you love in the NFC? So I think Tampa Bay can convince themselves that they got a shot here. And they don't need to convince themselves, because I think it's absolutely the case. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers should win the NFC South. They should. I think they're still a good enough team to be able to win what is still a pretty weak division. And then you get in the dance and you see what happens. So my prediction right now is that Vita Vea is a Tampa Bay Buccaneer when we open the season. But if the Buccaneers were willing to entertain trading him, I don't think that the Broncos would be at the front of the line here, because I think they made a very calculated decision that they had a player in Malcolm Roach that they felt like could step in and they not lose a lot. When you still have Benito and you still have Surtain and you still have this defense as a whole, I think to give up the assets and pay Vita Vea what he's asking for, I don't see it for the Denver Broncos, and I don't think that they're in the rental business. It just, since Sean Payton arrived, it just doesn't feel like they're a team that's willing to make a big trade for somebody just for a year and then let him walk out the door. I don't think a lot of teams are in that business in the NFL, if I'm thinking about it. So I think that the Broncos would be pretty far down the list of teams that would be willing and able to swing a deal for Vita Vea. My initial thought was actually an AFC West team. No, not the Denver Broncos, and no, not the Kansas City Chiefs. Although, just like every other fan base, imagining Vita Vea in a Kansas City Chiefs uniform next to Chris Jones and George Karlaftis, I like that idea. I thought the Raiders. I thought that would be a team. I don't know that the Max Crosby saga is over just yet, and I don't think Max Crosby have been essentially traded. If this season goes south, I think Max Crosby is going to get brought up again. I think he's one of the players that you look at going into this NFL season and like, I don't know if that guy's going to make it through the whole season on his current team. And I think there will be quite the arms race because the NFC is stacked. The AFC, unless you fully believe in Baltimore, Buffalo, and Kansas City ascending and being back the way it was, which I'm not fully convinced. I really like Baltimore this year. I don't think Kansas City is going to be back to what they were. And I don't see how Buffalo is going to be better. Now, New England could be worse and Buffalo could win that division, but I don't see that Buffalo is much improved. So I don't think that the AFC is going to be any less chaotic and wide open as it was last year. And I don't know if the Raiders are going to be willing to trade Max Crosby inside the AFC West. They were willing to trade him inside the AFC, clearly. I think there are going to be a lot of teams that are out there looking for a difference maker. And I think Max Crosby could be one. And now it looks like there's another one in Vita Vea. I think we're too close to the NFL season for me to see Tampa Bay go, you know what? You're right. And trade him tomorrow. I think there's going to be a little bit of a standoff here. And I think Vita Vea is still on the Buccaneers roster when the season kicks off. Is he going to play? That's always the ultimate question. It's one thing to hold in and to not practice. It's another thing to sit out games. We're early on in this. Vita Vea just requesting a trade. I think he'll still be on the Buccaneers roster by week 1. Is he playing week 1 is another question. And I think certainly this becomes a guy that you file away and come the trade deadline, you go, is that guy still available? Because maybe he's the difference maker we need to push us over the top. Coming up next, it's the 3 stories that are driving the show. Hello there. Welcome in. Glad to have you on this Monday, whether you're listening to the show on Extra Sports 1300 or 740 KVOR or the streaming apps of those two fine radio stations, which are free to download and free to use, or if you're watching the show anywhere you scroll. Really do appreciate it. If you'd like to take your participation in today's show to the next level, please do. It only enhances the show when you are a part of it. 719-247-1313 is the number you could call or text, or you could simply drop a comment on the social media platform of your choosing where you are currently watching this show. Perhaps you have a thought or two on the three stories that are driving the show today. All right, story number one. The Nuggets are in the exact spot that Josh Kroenke warned us a year ago they didn't want to be in, because they would be one injury away from having to trade Nikola Jokic. They are now in the second apron, the only team in the NBA currently over that dreaded second apron, all because Sam Presti wanted himself a new Lou Dort. Oklahoma City over the weekend offered Spencer Jones, restricted free agent for the Denver Nuggets, a 2-year, $12 million deal. The Nuggets had until 10 o'clock last night to match it, and match it they did, pushing them over the threshold. And I think Sam Presti, being the opportunist that he is, just like when he saw the LA Clippers that were starving for a superstar and said, would you like a Paul George? And then took every young asset, including SGA, and every draft pick the Clippers had. I think Sam Presti was being opportunistic. I think he looked at Spencer Jones and legitimately said, we could make him into Lou Dort. I mean, Spencer Jones fouls a lot, so does Lou Dort, but occasional three-point shooting, solid defense. I think first and foremost, Sam Presti looked at Spencer Jones and said that guy could play for us. And then he said, well, if they match, bummer, we lose out on Spencer Jones, but they're into the second apron, and now they got the financial handcuffs on him. One of the few teams in the West that can actually be mentioned in the same sentence as the Oklahoma City Thunder now is in a world of hurt financially. What does this mean? This means if the Denver Nuggets do not get out of the apron by the trade deadline this upcoming season, they will be unable to trade the next first-round pick that is tradable at this point. They will not be able to package multiple players together to make a trade. Any trade they did make would essentially have to be matching dollar for dollar, which that alone would make me curl up in the fetal position, that I have a hard enough job on Trade Machine to match dollar for dollar. And now the Nuggets would have to do that. And by the way, it'd be a sizable, even more money on top of their payroll that they would have to pay in penalties. But basically what the second apron means is that the Denver Nuggets are locked in to their roster. You cannot be trusted with making moves anymore because you have gone over this apron. You can't do anything now. That's essentially what is happening to the Denver Nuggets right now. So as far as it pertains to Peyton Watson, okay, if you want to avoid the issues that I mentioned, you have to trade him for just draft capital. And by the way, you're trading him into a market that there are really only two teams that can just absorb a $25 million contract. And I'm just ballparking based on reporting what Peyton Watson might be and using Christian Brown. There are two teams. Two. Brooklyn and the Clippers. That's it. Everybody else is like, well, we like Peyton Watson, but we kind of need you to take salary back. Nope. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's difficult. So the Nuggets essentially dump him for draft capital, or they go even further into the abyss and make it that much difficult to extricate themselves from it by making other moves between now and the trade deadline, right? If you keep Peyton Watson, simply dumping Cam Johnson is not going to get you out of it. So the Nuggets are really stuck here. And if they truly want to avoid the second apron, they would have to dump Peyton Watson for picks, and they would also have to dump Cam Johnson. Does that sound like a team that's moving the needle closer to a title or getting further away from it? But here's the spot that they're in. They can do that, and they're definitely worse. Or they can make the biggest bet in the history of their franchise. If they sign Peyton Watson and say, this is our team, because it would be if they sign Peyton Watson, they would be making a $500 million bet on this team being able to win a championship. $500 million. Now, I don't care about that figure as much as I care about what they're betting on. This was the team that got bounced by Minnesota. Right? So you're going to go Murray, Brown, Cam, Gordon, Jokic, Marvin Bagley, Peyton Watson, Bryce Hopkins, Alpha Diallo, Trevon Brazile. This is the team that you're going to pay $500 million to, or pay $500 million for, and you're going to tell me that that team is going to knock off San Antonio or Oklahoma City? Oh, Spencer Jones, by the way, can't forget him. The whole story's about him. But if they choose to do this, this is the biggest bet in the history of the Denver Nuggets franchise. And if this bet doesn't hit, they go bust. Because they got a bunch of guys who are under contract, and then all of these second apron things come into play. They are stuck. They are absolutely stuck with no good options. This is what the Clippers must feel like after what Sam Presti did to them in the Paul George trade. This is why, we're stuck and we're never going to get better. We're never going to win a championship. That's kind of how it feels dealing with Sam Presti. But if you're a fan of Spencer Jones, you will be able to see him at Ball Arena this upcoming season. Story number 2, Switchbacks FC caps off a perfect month of July as they get a match-winning goal in the 95th minute. We call it at the death from Jonas Fjellberg to beat Charleston 2-1. And that being the last match of July to cap off a 4-0 month, it's actually the perfect match to do it because that was a showcase match. Charleston was second in the East, Switchbacks fourth in the West. These are two top teams in their respective conferences going head-to-head on a Saturday night. There were a lot of people in the USL watching this, and they saw these Switchbacks control most of the game, and even when they conceded a goal, they did not stop. They kept pushing, and they found a way to win. This team, much like they did last year, making a run in July, now we see going into August and September, can they sustain it? Talon Maples joined me in hour number 1, Switchbacks defender, and he has every bit of confidence that they will. But it was a phenomenal month for Switchbacks FC and a great match, a great win at Widener Field. And now they got a bear of a schedule. Next to at New Mexico, at Rhode Island, out to Spokane, Washington for the USL Cup knockout stage, back to Colorado Springs for Birmingham, then back out on the road again. They play 7 matches in the month of August, 5 of them away from Widener Field. It's great that they got their business taken care of in July, but I also look at it and say they kind of needed to, because it's going to be difficult to accumulate a ton of points when you're playing that many matches in 1 month, and the vast majority of them are away from home, including trips to either coast. So July was perfect. August, we'll really see what this Switchbacks team is made of because of this gauntlet of a schedule they have coming up. And story number 3 today is just a horrible, horrible story. Eric Bieniemy, who is once again the offensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs. He was in that post for a long time. You know that he went to the University of Colorado and was a star football player there. Allegedly, his son shot his wife. And I'll give you audio. This was Andy Reid, Chiefs head coach today, talking about this just absolutely horrific situation.
Our hearts.
Here's the silver lining in this. Maya Bieniemy, Eric's wife, is in stable condition right now, reportedly. So that is great news. But this, could you even imagine? Could you imagine dealing with that in your family, that your son shot your wife? Unthinkable. So obviously, I echoed the sentiments of Andy Reid. I mean, my thoughts are with Eric Bieniemy and his family right now. What a terrible, terrible situation. And the only decent thing out of it is that it looks like early on anyway that the prognosis is good for his wife. And this is, in the same time period as we find out that Kyle Shanahan was in a horrific car crash a couple of weeks ago. 40 stitches, broke 3 ribs, his nose, his hand. I mean, just awful. So, thoughts to Kyle Shanahan as well. He's going to step away and be a little less involved in training camp to start. Chris Forster is taking over most of his duties there with the 49ers. But, man, what a awful few days in the NFL world. And, man, just a good thing that Eric Bieniemy's wife and Kyle Shanahan look like they'll be okay. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on those stories that are driving the show. Whether you're a student, teacher, or parent, we could all use a little extra cash at the beginning of the school year. That's why we're giving 5 winners $1,000 to spend on any of your back-to-school needs. Head to extrasports1300.com or kvr.com now to enter this national contest for your chance to win the back-to-school shopping spree. A fun game that you might want to play with your friends here as we get closer to the college football season is, can you name everyone who is or is not in the Mountain West? And we might do it on this show a little bit, like when we bring up a team, say, still in the Mountain West or not in the Mountain West anymore, because the Pac-12 is back, I guess. I mean, I will say to the end of days, how the Mountain West and the Pac-12 couldn't figure their stuff out to just have those two conferences together is beyond me. It really is. And each one has landed a punch on the other. I think North Dakota State is a phenomenal get for the Mountain West in football, but Gonzaga is a phenomenal get for the Pac-12 in basketball. Like, they've each landed some blows, but it's like, just combine. What was the problem? Alas, we push on. UNLV still in the Mountain West. And it's their basketball coach that has made headlines over the last few days. Josh Pastner, who you may remember from Memphis, took over for Calipari there. Well, he's at UNLV, and he made an impassioned plea on Las Vegas TV to basically get an owner of UNLV basketball. And he says, all these franchises are going, and it's the perfect analogy because the expansion talks are going on with the NBA in Vegas. And Josh Pastner's like, well, wait a minute. For a mere fraction of what you would pay for an expansion fee, you could be the owner of UNLV basketball. And basically it's, hey, we need, money to pay players. So you could be the owner. You could, there's some niceties that come along with that. And when I listen to it, I'm like, I hate that college sports has come to this, but given that this is the world and the reality that everyone is living in, I actually don't hate it. Like Kenny Dillingham, people are starting to get on him at Arizona State, not in the Mountain West, for like constantly pleading for people to donate. And I'm like, what is he supposed to do? Because what happens? He stops begging for money. Money stops. Arizona State loses. He gets fired. And what is he supposed to say? Well, you didn't give. It's like the Calico Cut Pants skit on I Think You Should Leave. You got to give. You got to give. I hate that Kenny Dillingham and Josh Pastner are being put in this position, but it's the life they lead now. So when I heard Josh Pastner talk about this, I'm like, yeah, what a great case to be made. Right? You come in and you give a certain level in the millions. I think he was asking for $10 to $12 million, which given it's like a $3 billion expansion fee, I mean, it's much more affordable for the wealthy in the Las Vegas area. And you could help, and here's Pastner's pitch, you could essentially help restore UNLV basketball to what it was under Jerry Tarkanian. You can make UNLV basketball a national player again. And you could be the person, you could be the man or the woman who helped bring back UNLV basketball. I'm listening to Josh Pastner say this. I'm like, this makes all the sense in the world. Even UNLV's social media accounts had some fun with it. And now I see today Josh Pastner has to apologize. So he said, I want to clarify, because apparently people don't understand what he's talking about. I want to clarify my recent comments regarding support for the UNLV men's basketball program. The Running Rebels are not for sale, and my reference to an owner was meant to highlight the level of resources, sponsorships, and overall support needed to compete in today's evolving college athletics landscape, not to suggest anyone could own the program. It is an honor to serve as head coach of the Running Rebels. This program belongs to UNLV, its students, alumni, blah, 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 blah. The fact that Josh Pastner has to apologize. Like, critical thinkers understand what he's saying. You could be the person, the benefactor, and you could have your name in lights on UNLV's campus for getting this men's basketball program back to where it was. And I don't know what that. So apparently there was backlash, but I don't know. So what did somebody not get? What would it be becoming the owner? If you took that as a literal term, what would that mean? That you get, I guess it has to do with people being worried that the revenue generated by UNLV basketball is going to go to this person. That's the only thing I could think of, because you think, what else does an owner do? Well, an owner can have influence over the players that come in. Well, this person would. They could have the power to hire or fire a coach. Let's be real about college athletics. The people who are donating to the program have every bit the say in who the head coach is. So really, why do you need to clarify? Other than the revenue generated by the program going into this person's pocket, everything else that comes along with being an owner in the NFL or the NBA or Major League Baseball, you would have that power at UNLV. But it's like, it's just, what do we want from these people? Right? Like, I have to just be fair for a minute to some of these coaches. And look, there are haves and have-nots, and as far as the Mount West goes, UNLV is a have, and there are other programs in the Mount West that would love to have the resources that UNLV does. I understand that. But what do we want from Kenny Dillingham, and what do we want from Josh Pastner? Right? We want them to not, it's unseemly for them to be begging for money when that's the only thing that's going to allow you to compete. Like, we all marvel at the story that the Indiana Hoosiers were. You think that was on a dollar store budget? You think Indiana Hoosiers football is on welfare? Like, it costs money. Yes, you have to have smart people to be able to use that money wisely, but it still costs money. Indiana spent a lot of money in order to win a national championship. That's what you have to do. So we're going to tell these coaches, don't get inventive with the ways that you're asking for money. Just be quiet about it and hope that the money rolls in and you're able to compete and keep your job. I mean, this is the ultimate example of don't hate the player, hate the game. Don't get mad at Josh Pastner because he used a word that makes you confused on what that means, and don't get mad at Kenny Dillingham that every press conference, every media scrum he has, he's somewhere begging for money. Hate the fact that this is what college athletics has become, and that it is pay for play, that they put no guardrails in place for this NIL, and it became the Wild West, and now these coaches are having to be the highest bidder for all of these athletes and then ask for more money. So I have no problem with what Josh Pastner said. I guess it's because I understood what he meant. I didn't think that if you became the owner of UNLV basketball that the ticket revenue would go in your pocket, but maybe enough people thought he meant that. No, you're a donor. It's just donor implies no reciprocity, right? Donor, I'm giving and not getting. Well, who wants to give and not get, right? Let's be honest with ourselves. Let's speak to the real human condition here. We want to give, but we want some back. A tax break? I don't know that the money you're asking for, I don't know that that's enough. Although Josh Pastner did talk about the tax breaks that you do get by being the quote-unquote owner of UNLV basketball. I mean, look at Cody Campbell in Texas Tech. He finances Texas Tech, and he gets to be one of the biggest figures in all of college athletics. Because he's got a seat at the big boy table because of the money he donates to Texas Tech, and now he could be the one crusading for the Protect College Sports Act and pulling television right. Like, you probably know Cody Campbell's name more than you know who the current head of the NCAA is. No, it's not Mark Emmerick anymore. So Josh Pastner, all he was doing is just appealing to our human need to get recognition and to be celebrated. And he's saying you can do it by helping restore a historic college basketball program. And I'm old enough to know when I first got into college basketball, right? The Final Four in Denver, Duke, UNLV. When I go and call Air Force games at UNLV, I walk by the statue of Jerry Tarkanian and all those thoughts come flooding back. Stacey Augmon, Larry Johnson. Well, if you want that again, you got to pay for it. Much like I'm pretty sure Jerry Tarkanian did, but that's neither here nor there. It's a shame. Like we want it both ways. We want the athletes to get paid, okay? But yet we don't want the coaches out there stumping for money like a politician on the campaign trail. It's like you can't have it both ways. 719-247, 1313. Sticking with college athletics, I had an inkling, thought that at the very least, there's no way that the second year of Bill Belichick at North Carolina could be worse than the first. I don't know if he'd be successful, but it can't get worse, can it? Well, before the season kicks off, it might. That's next here on Extra Sports 1300 and 740 KVOR. Speaking of college basketball coaches needing to, I don't want to say beg, borrow, and steal, but that does lead potentially into the next thing I want to talk about, but they have to plead for money. And Josh Pastner of UNLV tried to find a fun way to dress it up, say you would be the owner, essentially, of UNLV basketball. People didn't like him saying that, so he had to retract or clarify his statements. But here's what he is up against, or at least you can estimate. Okay, the Athletic talked to a bunch of high-level college basketball coaches, okay, and said, give us an idea of what you have to pay in order to be competitive, to truly have a shot in your conference. Here are the numbers that the Athletic came up with. The cost to build a competitive men's basketball team in the SEC will cost you $18 million. Up, by the way, up from 9.7. In the Big East, it's going to cost you $14.5 million. Big 10, 14.3. Big 12, 13.8. And the ACC, 11.5. And you could say, well, the Mountain West is none of those. You would be correct. But how far behind do you think the Mountain West is? Like, really? Could it cost $10 million? 9.5, 9, 8.5? I think at this point you're going too low. And also, let's not just talk about competing in the Mountain West. How about let's talk about competing nationally? Remember how fun it was when San Diego State, who's not in the Mountain West anymore, was going to the Final Four in the national championship, and what a boon that was to the conference? Well, some of these schools, like UNLV, would actually like to do that. So, yeah, maybe you only need $8-9 million to win the Mountain West. Maybe that's plenty to win in the Mountain West. What if you want to compete in the NCAA tournament? Couldn't you argue that you're going to need to spend what these power conference teams spend to be able to match up with them in the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8? I would think so. So you understand why they're out there every time a microphone is in their face saying, give me money. Because that's the only way to do it. And you say, well, they should do it the right way. Well, then why don't you tell the 17, 18-year-old kids coming out of high school to do it the right way and go with a coach that they trust, maybe think about their education a little bit, and tell them to have the right mindset. Or better yet, you know what? My son's 17 years old. He's not an elite athlete, but he's getting to be around that age. I don't know that I would expect him to have his priorities absolutely in order. How about you put the onus on me and other parents to be able to say, no, you're not making your college decision based on the highest bidder. You're making your college decision on who's going to get you ready for the NBA or who's going to give you a quality education or best student life. They don't care about that stuff. I think a lot of college coaches would love to do it the right way. And I'm not against NIL. I'm really not, because I understand that it's just we live in the year 2026. It's not the dark ages anymore. The idea that college athletes are amateurs in football and basketball it's nonsense. And I understand that. And I was a proponent of NIL, which means name, image, likeness, not pay for play. And I wish that there was some kind of an entity that could have put in guardrails when this thing got launched. But they didn't. It's like I'm watching the Netflix documentary last night about prediction markets. And that reminds me of college athletics. They're like, well, we started to do this and no one really regulated it, so it just became this. And they use the term Wild Wild West. We got to stop letting things become the wild, wild west. There's a reason why the wild, wild west occurred when it did. It was a lawless time that I don't think any of us would like to live in, especially me, because I'm not good at duels. But the parents of these athletes want the most money. So the coaches got to generate the most revenue, which how are they going to do it? By asking you. I don't know who complained with Josh Pastner. I thought he was being kind of creative with it, being honest, but costs a lot of money. And that's the thing too. It's not just the number. If the number's not staggering enough to you, just realize it's basically doubled for every major conference over 1 year. That is not sustainable. It's not sustainable for the cost of fielding or putting out on the court a competitive basketball team doubling every season. John Thune, congressman, did say today that he feels like maybe there's some hope for the Protect College Sports Act, which will put in some of these guardrails. But again, Congress, okay. Believe in them at your own peril. Sticking with college athletics, because this just came out, Bill Belichick and his general manager of North Carolina football, Michael Lombardi, has now been placed on leave and being investigated for basically harassment of somebody in that office, which is not great. Not the way you want to lead into a season. And by the way, the college football season begins with North Carolina. They'll be in Dublin taking on TCU. So that's not a cloud you want hanging over a program that was a national laughingstock last year with Belichick and his girlfriend and how bad North Carolina was. And now you got this sideshow of Michael Lombardi getting in trouble. And the College Sports Commission, which is the enforcement arm of the NCAA now, is investigating North Carolina for infractions regarding basically their roster NIL. So it's good to know that even in the Wild Wild West, there are some laws on the books, but I got to imagine you got to be quite careless and quite cavalier to be able to run afoul of those rules. But yet it's maybe North Carolina has. So I thought that it had to be better for Bill Belichick. And some part of me hoped it would be better. Like, he's a great coach. I don't want it to end this way. So I guess I was hoping that North Carolina football would be a little bit better. I don't need them to win a national title. Just save some face. Maybe next season. Don't look like this one. That being reported by Pablo Torre, who has got a knack for these things. And he's been really on top of a lot of the stuff that's happening in the Belichick regime there at North Carolina. So, yep, college sports continues to be a mess, but soon there will be games. And this is the thing. This thing you always got to keep in mind. Once we get to games, right? Once we get to meaningful games, a lot of this stuff will fade into the background. It will be noise. We'll be focused on it. And I think the NCAA and the other power brokers within college athletics are just counting down the days when all this other stuff kind of fades into the background. Same thing with the NBA, right? We got a great NBA final. And some of this other stuff about Kawhi and the second apron and all this harm that Adam Silver and the owners are doing to the league, kind of it went away because it was just about the Knicks and what an amazing story they were and the rise of Wemby. And then we get to the offseason and we're like, oh, yeah, I forgot the NBA kind of sucks now. Not completely, but like they're making themselves worse. Still no resolution on the Kawhi thing. Clippers and Toronto had to bail on a trade this offseason because of it. And now you have the Boston Celtics dumping Jaylen Brown essentially because he cost too much money. And then in our own neck of the woods, you have the whole Spencer Jones now re-signing with the Denver Nuggets, or the Nuggets matching the offer sheet offered to Spencer Jones by the Oklahoma City Thunder, putting the Denver Nuggets into the one place no NBA team wants to be, and that is in the second apron. This is how I think. Here's what the Denver Nuggets have to do. They really have two options here. You either dump Peyton Watson for the best haul of draft picks you could possibly get, or you just double down. You just double down and say, you know what? We're in the second apron anyway. Let's just go for it. Thelma and Louise style. We'll put our hand in hand and we'll drive right over the freaking cliff. Part of me, understanding the reality here, there is no world right now on July 27th that the Denver Nuggets are going to be a better basketball team this upcoming season than they were last year. That's just gone. There's no way. So part of me realizing that, and it's them going into the second apron that's making me realize it, because even if they dump Peyton Watson, they're still in the apron. So they would have to shed more salary. Part of me just says at this point, whether I agree with the way they've gone about it, which I don't, or I don't agree with it, which I don't agree with it. I kind of want them to just drive into the abyss. I just want them to sign Peyton Watson, like still negotiate. I mean, don't pay the guy $28 million if you don't have to, but just sign him. Keep pushing, work out a deal, get him signed. And you know what? If he doesn't want to sign with you, because you're insulting him because he put up one good month of basketball and now Rich Paul expects to have his player be worth $30 million, sign him to the qualifying offer. You go further into the second apron anyway. I want Peyton Watson on the Denver Nuggets. That would lock in the Nuggets. They would have 14 players. They'd have no way to do anything else with their roster. This would be the roster. They'd be way far into the second apron. They would be boldly going where no NBA team has gone before, and I kind of want to see what that looks like, knowing full well that the chance of them reversing course and building a winner around Nikola Jokic, it's laughable at this point. And that's the other thing, too. All of this stuff is going on when Nikola Jokic can freaking walk out the front door after this season is over. Like, they're doing all of this stuff. All of this is happening. And meanwhile, they're the best player that their franchise has ever and will ever know is under no obligation to play for the Denver Nuggets a single game after this season is over. And I'm kind of at peace with it. I'm kind of down for it. I kind of want to see where this goes. Make the bet. Double down. Throw out this roster well into the second apron and Nikola Jokic in a contract year, and let's roll the ball out and see how it goes. I got two teams that I talk about on a daily basis that I think have a chance to go for a championship, in the Broncos and the Avalanche. I don't need a third. That's greedy. I just want to see that sideshow. I just want to see the Denver Nuggets go through this. But make no mistake, the reason they're in the position that they're in is because it seems like they've just been sitting on their hands the entire offseason and reacting instead of being proactive. All right. leave it there for today. I do want to, before I go, tell you about Game Day Men's Health. About 6 weeks ago, started working with them, met with them, talked about any health concerns I had blood tests. And one thing I've learned is that a lot of guys are dealing with health issues that they don't always talk about. Maybe it's low energy. Maybe you're struggling to lose weight. Maybe it's sexual health. Or maybe you just don't feel quite like yourself anymore and you just don't want to tell anybody about that. Well, I could tell you from firsthand experience, these are great people to talk to. I've spoken with Nikki. It's been an open, wide-ranging conversation. I feel completely comfortable and at ease discussing this with her and knowing full well that the answers she's going to give me are in my best interest. Not about, oh, you got to do this, you got to do this. It's what's right for me. And I've been really happy about everything I've done with them so far. Adding sermorelin, a peptide, to help me sleep a little bit better, get some gains in the gym. I'm excited for it. So visit GameDayMen'sHealth.com, schedule your consultation, tell them I sent you. We'll talk to you tomorrow.